You're listening to Todd Bookspan's Real Talk on Intelligent Talk 960, The Patriot. Now, live in studio, your host, local real estate expert, Todd Bookspan.
Welcome to Real Talk, the show that's about you. It's about rebuilding Arizona's housing and credit markets one family at a time. And, really excited that you're taking time out of your busy Saturday to learn a little more about what's going on. I got to start with probably the most important thing of the day. Well, actually, no, I shouldn't start with that. First, let me actually introduce people here. I've always got to welcome Mick Bernard, my co-host, FICO certified strategist. Welcome, Mick.
Thank you. Here, I thought you were going to talk about your alma mater first.
Well, I was going to, but then I thought that would be rude to my guests. So I decided I better talk about what's most important, which is you guys. And what are we going to be talking about in the credit segment?
Fastest way to a credit score.
And fastest is a perfect word for today. Because I also want to welcome my guest who, although we have a little name transition here, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But I've got Kelly Fast Henderson, soon to be just Kelly Henderson legally.
Good morning.
With the Momentum Real Estate Group at Keller Williams Realty. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we just got to get like the elephant in the room is that you got married 1 month ago, so happy anniversary, 1 month anniversary.
Thank
Congratulations.
You so much.
Woo!
And so, we all call you Kelly Henderson now, but you're legally on the real estate world still Kelly Fast.
Yeah, it's a transition that is the thorn in my side right now, but I'm very excited to be Kelly Henderson and make that transition. But for now, you can find me Kelly Fast, Kelly Henderson. I'm all over the place.
All right, well, that's good. So we'll just have to keep throwing that out there. And I know down the road when someone's listening to this in 2020 and because they're learning about you, they're going to be really confused about it. But for today, I think that's important for the listener to be aware of. And yes, as Mick mentioned, not just my alma mater, Kelly's as well.
Nice.
Oh, yeah, go
the
Cats.
Wildcats, right?
Beautiful.
So great win the other night, and
Go Cats.
another great win tonight to get into the Final Four will be amazing. So I know where I'm heading after this.
Definitely.
And so that's kind of exciting, and I know Jeremy was really excited about that too, super producer. How you doing, my friend?
Not too bad. We have 2 Wildcats in there today.
2
all
Wildcats.
I'm a Tomcat. Never mind.
If ASU didn't get ousted in the first round, I would say something. But, yeah, you guys have us beat this year.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead and say it.
it's all right. I'm
Go
sorry.
Devils. I'll say it.
Ugh.
Oh, seriously? All right. My guests always wonder if we can edit the show, and put a bleep in there. That would have been a good thing to bleep out when we were recording, going through this thing. But that's all right.
I probably still have time to hit delay, no?
All right, there we go. Perfect. I appreciate that. So, but that's good. So, but you guys aren't here to talk about basketball. We're here to talk about what's going on in the real estate market. And, this show is really about all of you listening and really kind of wondering what's going on. And really the goal of the show is to really help you kind of get a little bit of a picture of what's happening. And, Kelly, you are focused on North Phoenix, North Scottsdale. You kind of do everything in the valley, but that's really your part of town that you're really primo number one.
It is. I'm born and raised here in Phoenix, and specifically North Phoenix, North Scottsdale. Went to elementary, middle, high school up there. Obviously went down to Tucson for college at the University of Arizona.
It's a good thing to do.
Yes, and then now we're both living back up there again. So North Phoenix, North Scottsdale. It's my hood.
Well, and I think that's, and it's good. And so, one of the things as we kind of go through this show, and so we'll kind of set it up for all of you who are listening, is that, the show really, we're going to kind of do a few different things over the 4 segments we have. We're going to kind of talk about what's going on in the market, where Kelly's an expert. That's obviously why she's here. We're going to talk a little bit about, for those of you thinking of buying a home or know someone who is, kind of some ideas of what you need to know about, what you need to ask questions, that kind of thing to a potential realtor. And then also those of you who are thinking about selling a home, wondering whether it's the right time or not. And again, kind of what that process looks like. And then we're going to take a break kind of in the middle of that, and then that's where Mick's going to talk about the fastest way to whatever he said about your credit.
Fastest way to establish a credit score for one of your kids, or maybe rebuilding it after a credit incident.
Well, there we go. And so, again, because in order to rebuild the housing market, we need people who have had credit incidents in their past to be ready to buy, and that's really a valuable piece of the show. So I always love that piece. If you've just joined us, you're listening to Todd Bookspan's Real Talk. We're here every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. on AM 960, The Patriot. You can give me a call on the off-air number. I'd love to put you in touch with Kelly Henderson. 866-250-252. Again, 866-250-252. You can go to MomentumRE.com. Again, that's MomentumRE.com because Kelly is with the Momentum Real Estate Group.
Good morning.
I like that. See, all right. So we got that going. So, so talk to me about, the market over, like in North Phoenix, North Scottsdale, that part of town. What's going on there compared to the rest of the market, compared to the rest of the country, that kind of thing?
Well, in the north part of the valley and really a lot of the greater Phoenix metro area, we're seeing an interesting transition. anybody that was shopping a year, 2 years ago, or even, I suppose, on the buy side or the sale side, was really seeing things flying off the shelf. And in the last, well, especially the last 6 months, but we've started to see a pretty big transition starting last summer into being more of what we call a balanced market. I don't prefer the term seller's market or buyer's market because I think in a variety of markets there's advantages to either. But right now we're seeing a very balanced market and starting to really head into a buyer's market. We think we'll just be here for a little tick and then switch over into being a buyer's market.
Well, and I think when I think balance, I think healthy, right? I mean, it's good.
So
it's good for everybody,
it
right?
is.
There's no one who's winning and losing like we had when it was no inventory. You know, it was tough. I mean, buyers were frustrated and sellers were happy.
I agree there, and I think it is worth noting maybe for listeners who don't really truly understand what a buyer's market is, that's who technically might have an advantage. So in what we call a buyer's market, that might be somebody who's not up against as many offers, whereas our buyers that were searching a year ago, they were being beat out all over the place. They might be writing 5-10 offers before getting something accepted. They're paying all of their own closing costs. It's a very different market. Right now what we're in is we're seeing a lot more negotiation. So a buyer that needs somebody to be able to bring some closing costs to the table, they might have that opportunity. They might be able to get a longer close of escrow period if they're needing to transition out of a rental or if they're selling their current house. We're seeing some contingencies hitting the market, which it's been a long time since we saw that. But if you're needing to sell and buy at the same time, there's opportunity there as well. So it's a big change in the last year, which has been refreshing.
Well, I think that's the key because, you know, last year, right, if you have to write 5 or 10 offers, you may not be in love with any of the houses you're buying, right? And you may love 1 or 2 of them, but you're just feeling like you've got to jump in and do something. And I do believe that the people who bought at that time turned out to be a great time to buy.
Oh, I agree there. My now husband and I actually purchased just over a year ago. And when we did, I thought, oh, I'm a real estate agent. It should be pretty easy to get into a house. I mean, I'm the best of the best, right? And we wrote 5 offers on 5 different homes before we found the one we're in now. And, of course, we are purchasing right now. So you're right. Like you said, a lot of people probably just rushed into something. So we're actually seeing a lot of buyers hitting the market again and interested in stepping up now that they have a ton of equity in their home. We have people who have been selling and they've owned for less than a year. So people who are just cashing out that equity and stepping up into their next home.
Well, and if you listen carefully, you're buying now, and so therefore it's still a great time to buy.
Fantastic time to buy and to sell. Like I said, it's really the sweet spot right now.
Well, yeah. I think it'll be kind of interesting to see because again, as the market continues to evolve, right? I mean, from our side of it, we've seen a ton of people who got burnt out last year and didn't buy, renewed their lease. Now they're getting reapproved again to go out and buy. We're seeing a lot of people who just weren't sure that the market would hold up last year, were scared of it, are deciding to get into it, or people who just didn't have the equity last year to sell. Right. They didn't want to do a short sale because they didn't want it to potentially damage their credit. And now they're all off to the races and able to buy again. Right.
Lots of that. We probably lost about 5 clients a year and a half ago to people who had just said, I'm kind of done with it. I don't want to be rushed. I don't want to be pushed into something. And now that the market's really turned around, I mean, that's the beautiful news to bring to people, that it was intimidating to purchase a year and a half ago. And now you're in a position where you can actually breathe, take a second. We do have people who are wanting to buy sooner rather than later because of obviously inventory's changing and who knows what will happen with the interest rates. But right now, having them being in such a great position and less than 5%, it's a beautiful thing happening right now to be a buyer.
Well, I think that's the key. And so, I know as we kind of, continue to walk through this, I think that I don't want to forget to talk a little bit more about, kind of you and sort of why we select you to be on the show. I mean, what I love about you is you're so education focused, right? So not just with yourself, educating yourself. We met at a Keller Williams Bold class last year, which is really a great, Keller Williams is known for the education part of it. They really do such a great job. But not only do you educate your buyers and your sellers, you really educate others in the community, the real estate community as well.
Yeah, that's my favorite part about real estate is that it's not just about buying and selling houses. And don't get me wrong, that's why I got into it. I wanted to make my mom, actually, she'd never owned her own home. And when she turned, just after she turned 53, she purchased her first home. Obviously, I had a little something to do with it.
That's awesome.
She likes to say that she would have never even considered it if it wasn't for me kind of pushing her and showing her some numbers, and really we talked a lot about credit and how to build that up, and getting to when she moved in, obviously we were just hot mess, crying all over the place, and it was a beautiful thing. So yes, that's why I got into real estate, buying and selling. But I love that there's so much more to do in this business, and education is a huge portion of what I'm interested in.
Well, and I know that you're working on some programs with YPN, and so, the Y stands for young, and so we also show the other white elephant out in the room is that although you're young in age, you're not short on experience in the business.
Yeah, I've been a producing agent for 24 months now, so 2 years, and in that time I've done quite a bit of business, so it's been a very quick and incredible transition. I've had an incredible support system when I got started in the business, and it's really allowed me to flourish and, like you mentioned, own my own team now, and so there's a lot going on in a very short amount of time, but I'm a pedal to the metal kind of person.
Well,
so
you're on the leadership committee at your office at Keller Williams, right? You're on you're kind of every possible thing you can be involved in or title that you can have earned, you've done. In a short period of time.
I like to do it all. So, yes, I serve on our Associate Leadership Council. I help on the Education Committee. I run our Social Committee. We do what my big passion right now is helping out with the Young Professional Network, both on a local level here with SAR, the Scottsdale Area Association of Realtors, and then with the Keller Williams International, YPN. I sit on the board there and help grow that aspect as well.
Well, and I think that's a challenge, right? The business, there's not a lot of people under 35 in the business.
No, I was trying to find the stats before I came in, and I couldn't. I've seen them somewhere, and I couldn't find them again. But I want to say it's less than 10% of agents are under age 35, and I'm significantly less than 35, so I suppose I would fall into an even smaller bracket there.
Well, I don't want that to scare any of you away because, again, I think that your experience and the education, everything that you've done was really what impressed me most last year when we met. And continues to impress me now. And I think that, the real key with the market is that, most people just don't get into it as a career, right? Most people kind of get into it part-time and do it. You went straight out of college. You talked to somebody, at U of A who said you should get into real estate, which I thought, what a great story.
Yes, it is. And you're right. It is very much a career for me. And hence why we started the team. My goal isn't just to be a one-stop shop. We want to be somebody's real estate expertise for as long as they're living and buying and selling real estate.
So we should say a quick hello to Ashley because she's obviously a big part of the team.
Ashley.
So thank you, Ashley.
Yes, our executive assistant. She's really taking the torch right now.
Well, that's awesome. So you listen to Todd Bookspan's Real Talk. We're here every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. on AM 960 The Patriot. That's Kelly Henderson, a.k.a. formerly Kelly Fast. Lovely to learn more about Kelly by going to MomentumRE.com. Again, that's MomentumRE.com. Or give me a call on the off-air number, 866-200-5252. Again, 866-200-5252. We'll be back after these messages.
You're listening to Todd Bookspan's Real Talk on Intelligent Talk 960, The Patriot. Now, live in studio, your host, local real estate expert, Todd Bookspan.
Welcome back to Real Talk, the show that's about you. It's about rebuilding Arizona's housing and credit markets one family at a time. And I want to thank you for taking time on your busy Saturday, time away from basketball, to learn a little more about our real estate market. I'm excited today to be joined in studio today by Kelly Henderson, formerly Kelly Fast.
Yes.
We got to say that until the legal license change all happens. So
take forever.
But welcome back. Kelly's with the Momentum Group, real estate group at Keller Williams Realty.
Thank you so much.
It's a big, long thing. I always got to make sure I say it correctly. Also, of course, got to say welcome back to Mick Bernard, FICO certified strategist, to be talking about the fast way to get your credit on track in the next segment.
Yeah, especially to help your children at an early age get a fast,
I like that,
quick credit score.
Says a good dad and granddad talking about that. And, of course, I always got to thank my super producer, Jeremy Siegel, for making us sound good. Thank you, Jeremy.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Even though you're a Sun Devil, that's all right. Today's Wildcat Day here on the station.
Woo-hoo,
Just so that's all good. And I think it's a we could talk for the whole segment about the Wildcats, but we're here to talk about real estate. And we kind of talked in the last segment about the fact that the market's become more of a balanced market, meaning that there's more inventory available, so people aren't having to put in an offer before they look at a house because it could have 20 offers on it in order to get a house under contract. There's actually inventory to look at, and the average house is on the market for a little bit longer than it was a year ago.
Yes.
That's fair to say, right?
That is definitely fair to say.
And so, but you said you like this market, that it's a good opportunity for all sides. And so, so if I'm a buyer, well, you're a buyer right now, you said looking for a home. So if I'm a buyer right now, what are some things I should be aware of and thinking about if I'm going to go out into today's market to buy a house?
I think one thing to be aware of being a buyer is to kind of put the stories you've been hearing behind you. I like to think that sometimes the real market hasn't caught up to what people are talking about. So people who maybe were buying a year ago or have friends that were buying a year ago, they're hearing war stories, as best described, of multiple offers and lots of intimidation in the market and maybe having to come quite a bit out of pocket than you would maybe another market. So I have a lot of buyers coming to me saying that they're afraid of that or that they need X, Y, and Z or whatever the case may be. And it's a very different market now. We're having, I have some really good friends which as an agent, helping your friends is both bitter and sweet. It's sweet because, I mean, you get to spend so much more time with them and you're helping them find their dream home, which is incredible. And it's bitter because you're helping your friends find a home. That's intimidating. You want to make sure that you're making all of their dreams come true, and it sometimes comes a little extra guilt if it's a harder process or whatever the case may be. And so we have some good friends that I was working with. We actually just closed 2 weeks ago, and this past October they tried to sell. And for a lot of people who listed this past October, they found that, and being on the buy side, that things were really slowing down. There just wasn't a lot of movement between October and November. And so my clients and myself made the choice to actually hold off and wait to sell until this spring. And we sold their house, which we're talking about buyers, so I'm just going to push that to the side. But they finally got to start shopping. And when we prepared them 6 months ago to start that buying process, we had a very different conversation. This time around, we got to talk about, well, what would life look like if you got to keep those closing costs in your pocket? Or what could you do if you were able to put down less and things like that. And we got to talk about purchasing the home with a contingency. So if they needed to buy the house contingent on selling their other house, and a lot of opportunity that just hasn't really been there in the last year or so. And it gave them a very different experience going into it. It also put us in the position that when they were on their first house, although it didn't appraise, they weren't in the position to feel like they needed to come up with that difference, which happened to a lot of my clients a year ago. So they were able to kind of walk away and take advantage of another better situation, which was wonderful.
All right. So as you're listening to that, there was like 10 different gems of information that I could desk in there. But no, that was perfect. So I think, I love the fact that you said you can't, don't listen to the stories because people always, the news is always looking in the rearview mirror. Right. That's not today's market. That's why we talk about what's going on in today's market on this show. And, I think it's interesting because you said right now you can have a contingent sale, meaning that you can, like last year we had a problem because people knew if they put their house in the market, it would sell in a snap, but they were worried that they couldn't find a house that quickly.
Correct.
And so a lot of people didn't go in the market because of that concern. So now you can actually buy a home, not always, but you can buy a home without it having sold yours yet so that you can try to time the closing so that you're not having to worry about being homeless in the middle.
Yeah, that's definitely one option. Another option we're finding that since we're starting to edge to a buyer's market, it seems to be easier for a buyer out there to find a house. There's a lot more inventory out there.
Right.
So it is even possible for a buyer to put their house under contract and go buy a house and still be able to close them at the same time, even without a contingency. We've had a lot of clients taking advantage of that situation.
Well, I think that's important because that was, again, a challenge we had last year is that people were, when they were underwater and couldn't sell their home, then they couldn't qualify for both mortgages. I mean, now you have that ability to kind of time it up a little bit better and make sure that each piece of it truly fits together.
Definitely.
You talked about the fact that you can maybe get closing costs now. I mean, just because it's becoming potentially transitioning towards a buyer's market, it still doesn't mean that you can see a house that's $300,000 and buy it for $200,000, right?
No, you definitely can't. Usually when I have clients that are getting closing costs covered, we're typically offering around list price, which happens to, in most of these cases, be the value of the home. So we're not undervaluing it, but offering what's a fair market value for the house and then asking for closing costs, as opposed to trying to lowball them, get below market value, and ask for a closing cost.
Well,
we're not there right yet, but
that's the key, right? It's you talked about your friends whose property they're trying to buy didn't appraise because last year people were bidding above value in order to get a house under contract. So now that you can actually buy at market value, I mean, that's really what you want. You want to be able to sell your house for what it's worth, and you want to be able to buy your house for what it's worth.
That's why it's the perfect market right now. I'm happy on both sides of it. Our buyers are happy. Our sellers are happy. We're loving everything. So it's been it's good happy medium right now.
Well, there you go. So I definitely love to put you in touch with Kelly Henderson if you're thinking about buying or selling a home. Give me a call on the off-air number, 866-250-252. Again, 866-250-252. You can learn more about her at momentumre.com. Again, that's momentumre.com. And so, I mean, I think that it's a, it's a great situation, when someone's doing it. So are there a couple of questions that someone could ask a real estate agent about, if they were trying to interview people to be their agent if they were thinking about buying a home?
Yes, there are. One question that I think is important to ask an agent is maybe what differentiates you from other people. They can say a lot of things, so what I think is also important is to actually interview more than one agent. We typically find on the seller side, people are maybe interviewing one or two people. There's a higher likelihood that they're interviewing more than one. But on the buy side, a lot of the times if someone's going to go straight into a buyer-broker agreement, they're really only interviewing one agent, or at least that's been my experience so far. So for my clients, I always recommend them to interview other agents so they can see the difference in working with us. We very rarely have people take us up on that, but if I was recommending to maybe a friend that lives out of the state and they're trying to interview, I would say interview more than once so you can actually see the difference in the people you're working with.
Well, I think that's great advice, and it says obviously you're not scared to have yourself go up against someone else. And,
nope.
I mean, in the end, because you'd already said it, right? You're spending a lot of time with these people, right? You talked about working with your friends, and if you don't find someone that you, A, is qualified, and B, that you're going to enjoy working with, then you're going to be frustrated.
Right, and I love my job. I'm not interested in being frustrated with it. I want to work with clients who truly enjoy working with me, and vice versa. We want it to be a very win-win situation for everybody involved.
Well, I like that. Well, I'm Todd Bookspan. This is Real Talk. We're here every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. on AM 960, The Patriot. I'd love to put you in touch with Kelly Henderson. You'll also see her online as Kelly Fast, and she's recently married. You can learn more about her at momentumre.com, or you can give me a call on the off-air number, 866-250-252. Again, 866-250-252. We're bringing back FICO certified strategist Nick Bernard after these messages. Talk about the fastest way for you or someone you care about to improve your credit.
You're listening to Todd Bookspan's Real Talk on Intelligent Talk 960, The Patriot. Now, live in studio, your host, local real estate expert, Todd Bookspan.
Welcome back to Real Talk, the show that's about you. It's about rebuilding Arizona's housing and credit markets one family at a time. And those who know the show know the third segment's all about your credit. And this segment's brought to you by Credit Strategies. You can learn more about the credit company we trust by going to 911creditpro.com. I'm always thrilled to have Mick Bernard here, my FICO certified strategist on our team, to really kind of educate us. And today you're talking about the fastest way to get your credit back on track for you or someone you love.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about both ways because you'd be surprised whether the process is pretty much the same for either way. But I wanted to really touch base today. A lot of our listeners, I know a lot of you out there have high school kids, right? And someday they're going to go off to college. And wouldn't it be nice if for some reason they did need to get an education loan, that they might be able to actually qualify by themselves without you having to co-sign? And so if they don't have a credit score, that's not going to happen. And so here's what I really recommend. When your child gets their driver's license, sit them down and talk about finances with them. Make them understand, maybe how a checkbook works, how a bank account works. And, of course, a big part of that is how credit works. And so I would encourage you, when they hit about 16, 17, add them as an authorized user on your credit card. Because then when time comes for them to get their own credit, they're already going to have an established credit score. And guess what? You can add them as an authorized user. Your credit history will now report on their credit bureaus, and you don't even have to give them a credit card. And they don't even have to know that you've done that, which is probably the best thing about that. Because if you don't want your 17-year-old daughter,
secret.
Right? When my girls were 17, although 2 out of the 3, I would not have wanted them to have one of our credit cards and a free trip to Fashion Square. That's for sure. And so you don't have to give them a card. And then once they have that credit history reporting, the next step is for them to get their own credit card. And that would best way to do that, whether you're building your credit score for the very first time or reestablishing your credit, is to get a secured credit card. Especially if you have a child that you're helping with build their credit. Here's really what I recommend. Have them get a job, have them save some money, and have them use their own money to put in the bank so they can get a secured credit card. I mean, sure, I can give my daughter $300 or $400 so she can get a secured credit card, but is she really going to manage that card and the amount of money that she owes in that card with as much attention as if she actually had a job, had to earn her own money, and put that money in the bank for a secured credit card. That's what I think is the best way to do it. And so then they're going to have an authorized user card because it's going to have your credit history on it. Hopefully that's good. And then they're going to have their own credit history. They're going to get their own secured credit card. And you really want to have them set up an automatic payment out of an account to make sure that that minimum payment on that credit card is being made every 30 days regardless of anything else. That way it's impossible for them to get a late payment. You can always make an extra payment, but you make sure that minimum payment is there. And if you have any questions on where is the best place to apply for a secured credit card, give us a call on our off-air line, and we'd be happy to give you that information. Sometimes your own bank is a good place to go, but sometimes you want to let your kids get out on their own and do their own thing. And so, FICO describes there's 5 ingredients of a credit score, and one of the little-known ingredients is the proper mix of credit. And FICO describes a proper mix of credit as 3 to 5 credit cards and 1 to 2 installment loans. I know that sounds like a lot of different line items of credit. However, the sweet spot really is 3 credit cards and 1 installment loan. So once you've had that credit card, secured credit card for probably 6 to 12 months, what's going to happen is your bank or another bank is going to send you an invitation in the mail for another credit card. Make sure the terms are to your liking, and if so, I would go ahead and get that 3rd credit card. And again, make sure you set it up on an auto payment plan because you want to have 3 pieces of credit to help you reestablish your score. Also want to touch base on a story. I've had this. I know we only have a couple minutes left in the segment, so I want to touch base on a phone call I got this past week with somebody that has a bad credit score and a lot of bad information on the report. It's surprising at how many times people will call me on the phone and say, hey, listen, I want you to help me with my credit. But guess what? I've already started the process. I've already started paying off all of my past due stuff, and I know my score is going to be really good. And then I have to burst their bubble and say, sorry, but, paying off past due debt doesn't necessarily increase your credit score. All it really does is it does improve your credit profile. It could make it easier for you to get the loan that you're looking for. However, the fastest way to raise your score is to reestablish positive, good trade lines. That's exactly what you want to do. And it might be that you do need to pay off some old debt, but might not. But if you just want to be put on a plan or you have a question, again, give us a call so I can help you with that. We'd be happy to run a report for you, set up a plan. I can tell you now that over 30% of the loans of the homes that I help my buyers get into, when they actually applied with me, they did not have qualifying credit. And so we put them on a plan. That plan might take 30 days. It might take a year, but we'll continue to follow up with you to make sure that we put you in a place where you can buy that house when you're ready to do it.
I love that. You know what? I think that's there was a bunch of gems in there, some things that I'm going to put into effect with my college-age daughter, who I haven't given a secure or an authorized user card to. But in the end, I think what I always say every week is what I appreciate about you, Mick, is that you do take the time to help the people from bad credit to home ownership, which most people don't do. So I definitely would love to put you in touch with Mick Bernard, 866-200-5252. Again, 866-200-5252. Again, this segment's brought to you by Credit Strategies. Learn more at 911creditpro.com. Thanks. We're back with Kelly Henderson after these messages.
You're listening to Todd Bookspan's Real Talk on Intelligent Talk 960, The Patriot. Now, live in studio, your host, local real estate expert, Todd Bookspan.
Welcome to the 4th and final segment of Real Talk, the show that's about you. It's about rebuilding Arizona's housing and credit markets one family at a time. And we're having a great show so far, and I want to thank you for taking time of your busy Saturday to learn more. I want to welcome back Kelly Henderson, a.k.a. Kelly Fast, when you go see her online, because she's recently married. It's her 1-month anniversary. Happy anniversary once again.
Thank you so much.
Kelly's with the Momentum Real Estate Group at Keller Williams Realty. And really, I think that, I've always been impressed. I mean, like I said, we did a class last year together that was an 8-week class. And so, and not only did we do the class together, is they stick you in these tables and you're kind of stuck with whoever it is. And Kelly, unfortunately, was stuck with me.
The worst.
It was really rough. It was really rough. And so, but again, we kind of talked about it. I mean, Keller Williams is a company that really has great culture and does a lot of education. And really, more importantly, you yourself are really committed to not only getting educated yourself, but to educating others.
Most definitely. It's, when I got into the business, there was a lot of success right away, and I, without a doubt, 100% attribute it to the people I was around. And I remember thinking, why would everybody be so giving to me? I'm undeserving and new to the business, and there's no one owed me anything. And once I started to recognize that success on my own, it became apparent to me that that's part of the process, is receiving and then at the right point in time being able to give back. And I'm very excited to be in the position to finally give back.
Well, and I think it's huge. And I just love anyone who is really excited about not just building their own business, because obviously as a young entrepreneur, you are an entrepreneur when you're building a real estate business, but the fact that you are so involved with not just the leadership within your office, but also with Young Professionals Network, YPN, and teaching class there, I think this thing's great.
Most definitely. A lot of people actually don't know that the Young Professionals Network, in many cases, is obviously having some sort of age bracket around it, and a great percentage of our Young Professional Network attendees are under age 30. And the irony is I'm with those people all the time, but only 2% of agents nationwide are actually under age 30. And it's a pretty big passion of mine to be able to increase those numbers and show a younger audience that real estate isn't just about unlocking doors and driving people around, that it's a career that you can retire off of and build a legacy within.
Well, and I think that's just huge, right? So, I mean, many of you are probably listening thinking, my kid could be a realtor, or my niece or nephew. I just think it's an awesome thing because of the fact that, you're unique. You got into it straight out of college.
Yes.
Right, which is really great. And I think that the fact that it's such a small percentage of people that are, under the age of 40, under the age of 30, it's kind of crazy. And so I really applaud you for, not only being so focused on it, but being great at what you do.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And so, for those of you who missed out, we talked earlier in the show about the fact that it's really become more of a balanced market, meaning that, where last year we were really short on inventory and it was kind of crazy. If you were a seller, you were loving life. Now, really, it's a great time to be a buyer or a seller.
And I've seen that across the board, both buyers and sellers. We've had great experiences with either. Neither has been more of a headache or heartbreak right now. They're both just really excelling.
Because no one's adversely affected in this market, where before, if you had a listing, you're like, oh, great, this thing's going to sell in a minute. But if you had a new buyer, then you're like, all right, I'm going to have to really coach these people through the process. Because that's really what it was, right? Is a lot of hand-holding, a lot of coaching through the frustration of putting in offers and not being able to get them accepted, where you don't have that same problem today.
I agree. And I suppose even if you were able to get through the portion of the hand-holding, it was less of that. Once the education is there, it was pretty easy. But it was more so about dealing with disappointment and having people understand that when they write an offer, the odds are they weren't going to get the house if they were a financed buyer or something like that. And so it was an interesting place to be mentally when working with a buyer.
Well, it was interesting. One of the things that you had told in an earlier segment was a story about friends of yours who last year were looking to sell a home and buy a home. And one of the things that you said that really speaks volumes of who you are as a professional realtor and as a person is that you guys decided you coached them through that it wasn't the right time. You actually had them take their house off the market, have them stop looking at buying.
Right.
Successfully just got them into a home 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
But again, most people are all focused on, all right, let me get this deal done. Let's move on to the next one. And here you were telling the client, actually, no, now's not the right time.
Well, I think it goes back to what you were talking about real estate being a career as opposed to a part-time or second job. I'll be around whenever they want to buy or sell, be it now, be it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, whenever it's best for them, I'll always be around. If now's not the time, then we can wait because I'll still be there.
And it's and I think that's kind of huge. And so the thing to think about is that if you're thinking about selling a home, is you really want to find the right agent. You really want to make sure that you're getting the best advice. And so I definitely would encourage you to take a look at Kelly Henderson. You can learn more about her at momentumre.com or give me a call on the offer number 866-250-252. Again, 866-250-252. You're listening to Todd Bookspan's Real Talk. We're here every Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. on AM 960, The Patriot. And so as I'm thinking about listing a home, you said earlier, too, that most people, they might only call one or two realtors. So they pick up the phone, they call a realtor. What are some questions they should ask if they're thinking about selling their home?
Oh, my favorite question ever. A seller, when they're starting to look, it's a lot easier to compare apples to apples because of statistics. When you're buying a house, you would want an agent, I guess, who can get you the lowest percentage of the list price. Wouldn't that be ideal, to get the lowest price possible? But it wouldn't be ideal if you wanted to get in a house. Sometimes money is less important than actually owning the house. So those numbers can vary a little. When you're selling a house, it's pretty cut and dry. You want the most money and you want to get out of your house. So 2 statistics that I recommend for people to ask their agents about. The first is what their average days on market is. Last month for February, the average home was sitting on the market 86 days. And so when you're interviewing an agent, you would be looking for somebody who has a lower number than that. You want somebody who's better than average.
And rumor has yours like 28 days.
It is. It's 28 days.
I know you were saying that about
Rumor.
yourself, so I'll throw that in there. I've got good notes.
Rumor has it. And then the other statistic you're really going to care about is their average list price to sales price ratio. So if you list your home for $200,000, how much are you going to be able to get out of it? Now, obviously, these numbers are averages. So you could list your home with somebody who has a great track record and maybe you overprice the listing and it sells for less, or it could sell for more. So it's an average. You need to keep that in mind. But right now, if you looked at the greater Phoenix metro area, it's about 97% for February. Homes were selling at 97% of list price. So you're going to want to find somebody who has a higher than 97% list price to sales price ratio.
And so I don't have that in my notes, but I'm guessing yours is higher than that.
That's right around 99.9.
There we go. That's pretty
Isn't
awesome.
that like 100?
I figured that was a gimme. I was hoping that we were leading that direction because it would have been embarrassing if I asked that question and you said, like, Mike's only 95.
No. Well, we don't want our clients to think that just because they list with us, it's going to sell for 100% of list price because it's an average. But yes, on average, it's actually like 100.04 is our list price to sales price.
That's pretty
ratio.
awesome. And I think it's pretty interesting, too, because, you kind of said it, right? Some agents go in there and they think the way that they're going to get your listing is by telling you they're going to sell it for the highest. So there's nothing in the neighborhood that sold for over $200,000, and they're saying, I'll sell yours for $210,000. And to me, when I hear those stories, it kills me because I'm like, well, yeah, but then how did that work? And then they're like, well, I had to reduce it to 205, and then I reduced it to 200, and then it was on the market where the average is 68 days. Mine was on for 80 days, so I ended up selling mine for 185. I'm thinking, what a bad strategy.
It's a horrible strategy. I agree with you there. When we think about pricing, obviously we're going to be looking at comparables, and I like to tell clients it's better to list appropriately and hopefully generate maybe even a multiple offer situation, as opposed to, all right, well, let's list 20,000 above just to start with, and we'll do a couple price reductions to get down to where we think it's fair. No one's going to pay above what they think is fair unless you're in maybe a multiple offer situation. So you may as well start off pricing right and hope that you can generate a lot of activity, which is why I believe maybe that our days on market is so low, because we price pretty accordingly and we typically are in a multiple offer situation in the first weekend.
Well, and it's hard, right? Because we all want the most money. You already said it. The seller wants the most money for their house. So I understand why someone might get duped into picking an agent who's going to sell them on why they can sell it for above market.
I like to tell clients if they do run across an agent who, we can sell it for $250 and maybe I think I can only sell their house for $200, I tell them, well, great, then maybe you should write in with that agent into the contract that if they ever ask for a price reduction that the contract is canceled.
Yeah, there you go.
Because if they're so confident in selling it for $250, they should have no qualms about signing something like that.
Well, and I think that's, you have to listen to that as you hear what Kelly is saying, and that you really have to understand the reality of the market, and have people give you the facts behind what they're doing and how they've come up with those numbers. And I think that's, one of the things again that kind of impressed me right up front is you're a straight talker. You just tell people how it is, and I think that's refreshing in today's marketplace.
I appreciate that. I don't know if maybe I just don't know any different, but that's just kind of how we've been running the business, and so far it's working out. Well,
but I think that's a great way to do it. I'd love to put you in touch with Kelly if you're thinking about buying or selling a home. You can learn more about her by going to MomentumRE.com. Again, that's MomentumRE.com. Or just give me a call on the offer number, 866-200-5252. Again, 866-200-5252. And I think that, kind of as we go in the last 5 minutes of the show here, it's kind of important to circle back to what's going on in the marketplace, right? More balanced inventory. People shouldn't be scared of today's market, right?
On either front, I don't think that they should be scared. To be a buyer means that you have more options out there, not only property-wise and location and such, but you're also dealing with a very negotiable situation in many cases. There's a lot of people trying to grow the market right now, and we've actually balanced out a lot. There hasn't been a lot of growth in pricing in the last, especially 6 months. So people who are thinking a year ago, they're thinking, prices are going up 5% every month and 30% for the year, and this is a great time. And so they're listing their home 5% higher, thinking, great, well, by the end of the month, the market will have caught up and we'll be good to go. Well, it's not moving like that anymore. It's a very stable market. It's also a great time to be a seller when you're being realistic about your pricing. But on the buy side, we are seeing a lot of sellers overpricing, and that gives our buyers a great chance to go in there and work on that negotiation when that buyer or when that seller is finding that they're not receiving any offers on their possibly overpriced listing.
Well, and I think that's, there's always opportunity on one side, and there's always, disappointment potentially for the people. And so when you get the right knowledge, the right education, the right knowledgeable person to help you out, then you should hopefully come up with the outcome that's best for you.
I agree. I agree with that entirely.
So, I think it's definitely one of those things. There's many of you out there who have been thinking about selling your home and have been scared to. I think that the fact that the market's kind of leveled out from a pricing perspective, means it's a good time. I think that there's people out there who have been scared to buy because they heard what was going on last year. And now I think that with prices leveling out and inventory picking up, it's a good time to buy.
Great time to buy. Back to what you were talking about, sellers who've been thinking about it. We still have been getting a lot of, we want to wait a year for the market to increase even further, which, don't get me wrong, the market will increase, or hopefully, in the way everything's going. I mean, you
historically,
can't,
right?
There's no secret ball I have here, but it looks like the market will rise like it does every year, the typical 4% year over year. But it's not like a year ago where if you waited 1 month, you were seeing those numbers. So people who are thinking, I'll just wait it out and get that higher number, you're not really getting anything special. It would be just like if, years ago you were selling and waiting for something. So there's no point as a seller to wait. If anything, I would say that they would be putting themselves in a negative position, something where a lot of sellers are thinking about selling right now. I mean, inventory is going up. We were at 2 months supply of inventory a year ago, and now we're at almost 6 months supply of inventory, which means there are a lot more people selling. So I would think if I was speaking with a seller, the longer you wait, it may not be as advantageous as people are thinking.
Well, and if prices do go up, unexpectedly higher, then what you're going to buy is going to be more expensive too.
It is. There's always two sides to every coin.
Right. I think people always forget that piece to it. And then, you already mentioned interest rates. Interest rates will probably be higher as well.
Definitely.
So I think it's just one of those things. Well, another show's flown by.
Very quickly.
I know you were kind of nervous, but you're a pro.
Oh, thank you so much.
I wasn't expecting anything different. Thank you, Mr. McBernard. I thought your credit suggestions were huge, and as always, there's actually things in there that me, who listens to you every week, learned. So thank you.
That's good. Successful Saturday.
There we go. Kelly Henderson with the Momentum Group at Keller Williams Realty, also formerly known as Kelly Fast.
Yes.
Thank you. Really appreciate you taking time out of your busy weekend. I know you've got a lot going on, especially
it's my pleasure.
With a new husband at home.
And tonight we'll be cheering for the Cats.
There we go. Of course,
Yay.
We should be singing. I don't know. Didn't have Bear Down Arizona queued up to play. And I noticed that Jeremy didn't either because he's a Sun Devil. But
Ew.
I also want to thank all of you for taking time of your busy weekend to learn more about our real estate market. I'm Todd Bookspan. We'll be back next week with more Real Talk. Definitely would love to put you in touch with Kelly Henderson, 866-250-252. Again, 866-250-252. Or learn more about her at MomentumRE.com. And again, have a great weekend. Go Cats. We're back next week with more Real Talk.
Tides that I tried to swim against pulled me down upon my knees. Oh, I beg and
Thank you for listening to Todd Bookspan's Real Talk, brought to you by the Real Estate Radio Network. To learn more, visit realtalkarizona.com.
can be